streaming here. Okay, everyone, thank you very much for joining us. Today we have Hamid Qureshi and me, Paul Siegel, to talk about Snowflake. Not the things that are coming down from the sky in some parts of the world where Hamid is actually on the southern hemisphere, or he's actually in, I guess, the summer. I should be where the snow is, but I'm not right now. We're going to talk about the Snowflake, that is the huge data warehousing company that exploded in all of the best ways about in October, I think, of this year, when it went public as a multi-billion-dollar company, having raised over $1 billion of venture capital, and understanding what is Snowflake, what's the hype, what's it all about, how do you get into understanding Snowflake, and what are the tools that underlie that massive engine. So before we do that, let's find out a little bit more about Hamid and what he's been doing and how he got into the tech field more overall, and then how he's gotten so deep into big data. So Hamid, welcome. Thank you very much for your time. And we love the bridge behind you, which is the Sydney Bridge, correct?
Yes, Paul, thanks. Yes, this is the Sydney Bridge, and no chance of snow here today. So it's almost like 35 degrees already, and it's just the morning. It's forecasted to be very hot this weekend.
Yeah.
So no snow here. Yeah, so I myself basically started in the data warehousing field back in 2006. So very few companies and very few people were doing data analytics and data warehousing at that time. So I found myself lucky to actually be associated with the company at that time, which gave me a flavor of this field. Since then, I've never looked back, so gone from strength to strength, and continuously built on this marvelous field, which is of data analytics and data analysis. So ever since Snowflake came into the horizon, I've been sort of tinkering with it and understanding what's the past all about. And I totally believe it is a radically different technology than many other technologies in the market, and that's why you see a lot of uptake of this beautiful new platform.
So tell me a little bit why. I mean, you skipped over. Tinkering is kind of an understatement. So I love when geniuses who are deep into a product say they're tinkering. It makes me feel quite small, by the way. No, it makes me realize how little I know about anything. But no, what attracted you to big data? I mean, obviously it's today it seems all the rage. You were doing this years before it was even called big data per se. But so what was it about massive amounts of information, managed by huge companies, which you've done a lot of consulting for, sort of drove your interest? What was it, do you think?
I think the field has a bit of both for myself. So I did love consulting and working with the business. And at the same time, I love the technological aspect of that. So, the amount of data that we could churn through within minutes in a parallel manner, that was just mind-boggling. And then actually, getting all that data. So I worked a lot with telecom industry at the very start, and they were the massive data producers at that time. So
right.
A lot of cold data records coming in, even the raw records coming in,
right.
Which companies wanted processed, and some value taken out of that. So like network quality analysis coming out of your raw signal data. A lot of people don't think about that when you're making a call, there's a constant signals actually being exchanged.
Right.
And based on that quality, you can actually determine whether a customer had bad quality or good quality call.
Yep.
And you can actually follow up in advance.
Right.
So getting all the data in and then being able to actually show that on a real-time dashboard, that was like really exciting stuff back in 2006 as well.
Right.
And that kept me engaged because you kept on producing value after value for the customer.
Yeah, and you could actually, and that what you're describing is often not just, sort of analyzing the data after the fact and then, weeks and months later making an improvement in your product. In the case of telecom, we've all had experiences and we think, they're not doing anything about that. But in fact, what you're describing is they're looking at that all the time in real time. And obviously, given the massive nature of the networks and, the challenges are enormous. But so it's really also about sort of going back to maybe some Jeff Bezos kind of comments. It's always about the customer, right? Taking the information and pushing it back and understanding what you can do with it. So and in telecom, obviously you've spent a lot of your time there. What other fields have you touched in the big data arena that have sort of jumped out as you as areas for opportunity?
I think pretty much every industry has a lot of opportunity, and it's constantly coming up. Over time, big data has, the Hadoop platform came into the picture. There are a lot of streaming platforms came into the picture, and that they have actually drastically changed what you can do with big data. So think about real-time marketing.
Mm-hmm.
You show up in ATM, and this was a very classic example. So you show up in ATM and there's nothing in your account,
right?
But you need $50, right?
Right.
And the ATM can take that intelligent decision right then and there that this is a loyal customer and has been giving us money for
right.
And now I need to $50. So I look up and say, I'm going to give him that loan without any fees.
Yep.
If an ATM did that to me, I am forever indebted to the ATM and to the bank as well, right? So I'm a loyal customer.
Yep.
And again, similar. So you look at the airline industry, there's a lot of those real-time things. I, for example, nowadays get text from my insurance company saying that there is a storm where your car is garage. So
interesting.
You want to do something about it.
Interesting.
In the garage, so don't get hit by the hail.
Yeah.
So there's almost every industry has that use case where you can put data to use.
Yeah, I was just imagining. I mean, I spent a lot of my career in the finance and the banking field, and I was always amazed that relatively more recently, banks have begun to realize, we should probably data mine the activity of a business account to help them understand where they're going. So instead of just using it to charge more fees, to say, boy, this company could be growing faster. It seems like the cash flow is, because they monitor that, obviously, and they do it for presumably maintaining all the proper securities in place. But so talk a little about Snowflake. Why Snowflake? What is Snowflake? And how does it differ? I guess, so why Snowflake? What is it? What is it? What is Snowflake? Why Snowflake? And how is it different?
I think to look at the Snowflake popularity and the technical advantages that it brings, we probably have to go a little bit back. So I think in the decade of 2000 to 2010, it was all about RDBMSs, so the likes of Teradata, Oracle, IBMs, basically providing data warehouse services. And then basically Hadoop started to take over, and it's a beautiful technology, but it required a lot of expertise to actually work with. And it brought a new flavor and took sort of the existing patterns a little bit away. So you no longer were doing SQL against Hadoop. Now you can, but at that time you weren't. So slowly they built up, but it still stayed a bit clunky, a bit loosely fitting set of software. Now, and this obviously ended up, companies spending a lot of effort and resource on that platform. At the same time, what has happened in the last 3-4 years, the cloud has started to take over. So everything is now being pushed into the cloud. And that's where I think what Snowflake has done is they have simplified the whole ecosystem. So signing up for, if I look at it, just signing up for the Snowflake instance is like a breeze. So anyone who can sign up for a Gmail account or go sign up for example, on Starweaver for a student account, they can do so on Snowflake as well. It's like a 4-click process, give your email, choose a few things, and you're good to go. So you're not bound by all the complexities of the cloud. So that's one thing. But at the same time, despite that, in addition to the ease, they have actually brought in a very unique architecture as well. And I think that's the unique selling point, where it's outshining at least the current databases that are there. So it has decoupled the storage and the compute. And I mean, other databases have done that as well. But the way they have done that is quite different, and it brings about a lot of other features that other databases just cannot. So things like cloning, where you create a copy of data without actually moving the data, or time travel, so you can go back in time and see your data as it existed, before you ran that disastrous query that deleted everything, right? It's just beautiful because I know I've had colleagues and myself as well. We have dropped tables in production,
right,
and have spent 2 days trying to retrieve them from a backup, and it's nerve-wracking. And if you look at this time travel, you're like, okay, I dropped this last week. Sorry, there's an undrop and the data is back.
And when you refer to time travel, you're not talking about theory. You're talking about the product name or the feature name.
Oh, yeah.
That's called time travel, cleverly named, right?
Yeah, it's an actual feature.
Yeah.
So, I mean, these things combined, they make it really stand out from the competition.
And so you're talking about this both from the perspective of someone who might be a consultant to companies who are using big data or implementing big data solutions, as well as a company themselves. So there's multiple roles, right? Someone who's using it as a tool for the organization, and someone who's a consultant consulting. I mean,
that's a beautiful point. Yes. So I think from a technical perspective as well, as a consultant, when I go in and I say, okay, I'm going to implement a big data solution for you, so there's a lot of flexibility for the implementer as well. But on the other hand, someone with a role like a persona like data scientist or a analyst, they actually can access the system just like they access any other system. So they still get the same familiar SQL interface, which is beautiful because they don't have to change their ways of working drastically. They start getting value out immediately. So there's a bit of both for both the consultant as well as the end consumer as well.
And with Snowflake, there is no on-prem solution, right? There is only a cloud solution, right? So they don't have to maintain separate code bases or refactor platforms. It is a cloud solution.
It is purely a cloud solution, so there's no on-prem version. I think the closest that comes to an on-prem is their GTC solution, but that's obviously still cloud-based, but it's limited to a specific customer. So they stand up everything for one customer. If you're, security conscious, or for example, you're a defense client and you want your data absolutely in a different silo. But yes, they are purely cloud, and they support the 3 cloud platforms, which are the popular ones at the moment. So the AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud Platform.
So I was looking at some of the compensation levels. Boy, I should have begun life as a software engineer in Snowflake. So software engineers with Snowflake, average pay is $139,900, so $139,000 for those. Senior software engineer at $160,000, sales engineer $110,000, customer technical support engineer $105,000. These are not low number jobs. This is not a job that one would shy away from. These are very substantial compensation roles, right?
Definitely. I think these are very good numbers, and I think there is a reason, because there's a lot of companies moving towards that platform. So I think there's a lot of demand in that area at the moment, and I think that demand will grow. As more companies catch up and they consider this as their platform of their warehousing.
Now, tell me a little about. So I'm a dreamer. I think that I do know a fair amount about networks and, let's say, and data and data management. How do I get into understanding Snowflake? What is this? What's the learning path? What's the journey that you go on to become familiar with Snowflake?
I think the best way to learn anything is to actually do it yourself, right? So you go hands-on. And as I said earlier, sign up for a Snowflake trial. So start with that free version that Snowflake offers.
Right.
So they offer a 30-day trial, which is fully functional, so you get to try all features. So that's the first step. Go in, get yourself familiarized with the UI. It is similar to other databases, but has a variety of other features that you slowly need to get yourself acquainted with. That's the way to go. And then I think hands-on activities, so go in, do some exercises, see how the data is moved in, learn the architecture. So it's a bit of a journey, but definitely a worthwhile journey.
And you have obviously courses on our platform and more courses coming and more on Snowflake. Interestingly enough, obviously, as I think I've announced before, and we are doing challenges on our platform. We're providing data sets so people can take those and use them on the platform. And you're going to start offering on our platform challenges that people can go out and actually do this in the Snowflake environment. Can you talk a little about that and what your thoughts about that are in terms of some of those challenges? Where you're going to take people from beginning to intermediate to advanced?
Yeah, definitely. So I think the best way to learn a platform is to slowly, incrementally build your expertise as you go. And I think one of the first things that I've seen people interested in, I think a lot of Java engineers are interested in Snowflake. So the immediate interest is how to get data into Snowflake.
Yep.
And the good thing is, as everything is cloud-based, it's relatively easy to set up a challenge where you say, well, the data is sitting in this cloud storage, and you're going to load that data into Snowflake through these steps. So you give those high-level steps, and at times you can even give the actual SQL saying that, this is what you will run, and load the data. So Snowflake supports so many data types and file types as well. So just from data loading perspective, there's I can think of maybe 10, 15 different challenges and exercises that you could undertake to actually understand how to load CSV data, how to load JSON data, Parquet data, and even load data in a streaming manner. So there's a variety of things that you could do there through those exercises.
And I think, and whether it's for your own self-edification, I call whether it's for your own self-edification or for demonstrating to your current employer or on a project you're working on or a new employer, there's no better way to demonstrate expertise than demonstrating you've done it and building a project or building something, even if it's, I tend to think it's better to use data in the field that you're in. So if you can find some sanitized financial data and you're in the finance field, or entertainment data and you're in the entertainment field, there are so many data sets out there that are free, and we, as I said, will be offering them on our platform. But there's from the University of California, Irvine, every major university has data sets for students, etc. So there's a lot that can be done. Talk a little about the ETL. Talk about the process that many people are not familiar with when one looks at data, and a problem set, and then takes it from the problem set to cleaning it, evaluating it, ingesting it, transforming it. Talk a little about that for someone who's not familiar with that process.
Yeah, definitely. So, as we've already, gone through the fact that Snowflake is purely a cloud database, so as such, it supports loading from the cloud quite easily. So the process that it's, funnily enough, the command to copy data is called copy. So it's so simple that you simply say copy data from this location into that location. But obviously that's the command part. There's a bit of preparation that goes into getting data organized on your cloud bucket. So you don't want extra storage costs. So there are considerations, extra processing costs as well. So there are considerations that you want to make sure that you have organized your data in a manner that you're only accessing that part that you actually need to load. So there are some considerations on that part, and then obviously you need to understand, what sort of the format of the file that you're dealing with, right? And accordingly create your processing in that copy command. So if it's a JSON file, you need to sort of transform it from your unstructured or semi-structured format to sort of a relational format. Then there are other decisions to be done as well, whether you actually need that data moved physically, or Snowflake provides a concept called virtualized view on top of your cloud storage itself. You actually get to access the data without even moving it, or an external table on top of that. So these are different considerations that you would do just while ingestion and ingestion of data. Then once the data is, you have access to the data, you can query it inside Snowflake. Then the next steps are transforming it. So there are other methods in Snowflake through SQL and other data pipeline through which you can actually transform that data into a desired format that can be used for reporting. So there's a few things in those pipelines that you have to go through to get the data into the final picture that's usable by BI tools and by business.
Talk about those BI tools. I was just about to ask you about the visualization, and obviously there's Tableau. There's a whole bunch of other tools. Can you lay other visualization tools like a Power BI and others on top of Snowflake, or is Snowflake self-contained in that regard, so that when you want to start doing reporting and analytics and visualizing that information, you would use Snowflake, or you might consider other platforms?
So I think a bit of both. So Snowflake is actually quite rapidly introducing a new UI that's called Snowsight. So it's quite, I would say, quite robust and quite effective. It does a lot of processing on the client side, so on the browser itself. So that means you're not hitting Snowflake every time you do a query. A lot of operations like sorting, like grouping, and actually creating visualization, simple visualizations out of that data can be done just on Snowsight. There's a dashboard capability as well, so you can create some basic dashboard right there in the Snowsight interface. But obviously, it's in early stages, and if you're tied to using things like Microsoft BI or Tableau, you can definitely connect with the JDBC connector. It's just like connecting to any other database. No difference from there. You have a JDBC driver, configure it, connect, pull the table, create the model, and actually say, well, this is coming from Snowflake.
Yep.
So quite straightforward.
Which do you think? I mean, you describe it as being a bit in the earlier stage. So do you think it's, without disrespecting Snowflake, do you feel that is it ready for the prime time, that kind of analytics that you would want to do for a major client, or is it still that you'd rather use other tools as we sit here in January of 2021?
I think I'll have to look at the Snowflake roadmap for that. So maybe not right for me to comment, but I personally think that their objective is to actually facilitate the analyst role and people who are just
business people
doing quick analysis right there. Yeah, so they don't have to go out of Snowflake to another expensive tool, so they can do it right then and there. But I think for some of those picture perfect dashboards and other things, you might still have to go to other tools at this point at least. But we'll see how it evolves.
Right. I mean, we always think, at least from my perspective, I always think of the roles. There's so many people's roles in technology, right? They're the people who are, on the keyboard. They're the analysts. They're the people who are doing more of the strategic thinking. They're people who have to consume the data. So obviously, many of these tools are beginning to have to cater to more than one audience, obviously. So I'm just saying that I asked the question not so much to be critical on any level, but to understand, because it seems like those things are so evolutionary for every organization, right? And it's constantly under change. And so what other? I mean, you've had Snowflake's not the only tool in the world for big data, obviously. What other experiences? I know you've been a guru in the Tableau world. How does that? How do you? What's your experience of Tableau? What do you like? What are the things that you that you think are comparatively even stronger than the Snowflake tools that you've been using? What do you think about Tableau, I guess, overall?
So Tableau is I think it's more of a data visualization side of things rather than number crunching. You can definitely pull in large data sets inside Tableau, but it's still at the end of the day a BI tool. So it's not meant for massively parallel processing. But I think from the perspective of the visualizations that it offers, it's definitely best in class. I mean, Tableau and Power BI probably are going neck and neck at this point. But there are different tools, so for different genres than Snowflake.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the other tech that is coming up. So Databricks has got the Databricks Data Lake or
right.
That's something that is bringing certain features similar to Snowflake. It's actually called Delta Lake to be accurate, which is bringing features that were missing in the lake, Data Lake previously, so you're able to update data and similar concepts. And because they are using a way to update data behind the scenes, they also are bringing concepts like time travel, although they are a bit differently executing that. But that's one possible solution that's coming into the market at the moment.
And in terms of, again, often people go into, a field and they say, I really can't prove myself unless I've got a certification. What about the certifications that Snowflake has been offering, and there are more of them coming? I've seen quite a few. Where they obviously have a roadmap, and we'll have shortly, starting at the beginning of February, a lot of the learning paths articulated on our platform. Where do you think that they stand in terms of value to the user, meaning versus just knowledge and practical expertise? Do you think that there's a huge amount of value in those certifications? I mean, in terms of having one under your belt?
I think definitely there is a lot of value. So Snowflake offers 6 certifications at this point. So there's a base certification which is called Snow Pro Core. So it's as they say, it goes inch deep but a mile wide. So it covers the breadth of the topic. It does not go into the detail of everything. It does go into detail of few things, but it gives you a full-fledged view of what the platform is capable of. And I think that certification is possibly for everyone that is dealing with the platform, so every persona. So your architects, your developers, your data scientists, your BAs, they all need to know how does this operate.
Right.
So that's definitely a very good starting point. And then there's the advanced track of the certification that kind of goes deeper into each persona. So you've got the advanced architect track, so that's one certification. You've got the data scientist certification and SQL analyst certification, DBA certification, and I think each of them holds value in itself. Because I'm a strong believer in one thing, that you can have a very great platform, great data platform, and you can bring it to its needs by not using it correctly. If you know what you're doing, that actually gets the maximum value out of the platform.
Yeah. That's interesting. I mean, you've been very insightful. I mean, you've run courses for us on Snowflake, and I think that the audience that you've taught was extremely appreciative. You know the subject. Both you can provide that kind of strategic overview, verbally, visually. You've done kind of. I was actually overwhelmed with the quality of the slide presentation. I thought you might have been a graphic artist in a former life, but then deep dive into the substance of the showing and how and building and helping people do. So one thing you mentioned in that class, but also was an important thing to understand, and I want to sort of wrap up with this, is the cost structure. Snowflake can be expensive. One of your facilitators in this program also mentioned that you can go bankrupt if you leave it running at the wrong level at the fullest power without knowing it. So one of the just things to wrap up with is sort of the business side. How does one think about Snowflake in terms of cost and in terms of managing costs? What's the best way to look at this and the best way to approach this if you're, let's just say, less experienced and need to be aware that you might run up a big bill and lose your job for having run up that big bill pretty quickly? So what's the best way to do that as a person new in the field relatively?
Yeah, so Snowflake actually provides those account and resource monitors that you can set up. So you can actually set up an upper limit and say, I don't want to go beyond that limit. And you can set alerts along the way. So, okay, I've used 50% of my budget, and you get an alert saying that, okay, you use 50% of your budget in one day, or whatever the case is, right? So you can be alert of what has happened, right? The other thing I think that's really beautiful is each of the computer engine, you can stand up computer engines for different departments and actually say, here is your computer engine, and you are going to be billed for this. So
departmental level.
The cost. at that level. Yes.
Wow,
So
that's great.
goes down to the department level. Doesn't mean that you're actually restricting costs, but at least they know that this is what we have done and we have to sort of pay for that. So that there's a variety of things that you can do, quite flexible in that sense.
And not trivial.
Yeah.
Not trivial. I mean, you know, a lot of people tend to think of it as that's the accountant's problem, but it becomes your problem if you can't make the data and segment the usage in a way that is clearly accountable from the business point of view.
Definitely. So you have to think about how you structure, how you isolate all these compute engines, and what's the best case. So it's very simple to say, okay, I'm going to charge data for this and finance for this and marketing for this.
Right.
But maybe if you actually keep everything together for the overall organization, it's less 50% less cost.
Right.
So it's not something that we simply say this is the rule of thumb. Just go ahead and give everyone their own compute instance. So it requires thought, and that's where I think the solution architecture role comes in. If they look into that and say, well, here's the best thing that you should do.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for your time today. Again, we'll see you and hopefully all the people watching and students online on our platform.
Thanks, Paul. It's been a pleasure.